Welcome to the Ward 4 Budget Town Hall meeting. Mayor Gray, yes, welcome. Continuing the practice Mayor Gray started when he took office almost 2 years ago, he will be brief the district ward by ward on his proposed budget for the coming year. With this, I am pleased to introduce Mayor Gray.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you all very much for coming out. This is the fourth of 8 town hall meetings that we're doing. We were in Ward 8 last night. We've also been in Wards 1 and 5 as well. We'll be in Ward 2 this weekend, and we'll have the next 3. I think all 3 of them are next week. Is that right? Or 2 of them are next week anyway. 2 of them are next week. So we will have hit all of these well before the budget period ends. First of all, I want to thank our sponsors. We have a lot of them tonight. We have ANC 4A, ANC 4B, ANC 4C, and ANC 4D. The Brightwood East Civic Association, Brightwood Park Community Association, the Citizens Advisory Council, Citizens Aware Block Organization, the Civic League of North Portal Estates, the South Manor Park Neighborhood Association, 1400 Shepherd Street Block, the Shepherd Park Citizens Association, and the Ward 4 Democrats. So I want to thank all of you. How about a big hand for our sponsors? I also want to thank Tim Shy and Lido. This is the 2nd consecutive year that they have provided pizza for the town hall meeting. Tim, I want to thank you very much for being a good friend. We have our CFO with us tonight. This is kind of the victory lap for him. He has served the District of Columbia government in the CFO's office for 16 years. 3 years as the director of the Office of Tax and Revenue, and now for 13 years, which is an incredible run. 13 years as the chief financial officer. There's some people who would find it hard to make 13 months in a job like that, but not Nat Gandhi. He has done a phenomenal job. He is someone who I frankly thoroughly enjoy working with. Worked closely with him as the chair of the Council of the District of Columbia, and now 2 years and a little over 3 months as the mayor of the District of Columbia. He is here with us tonight, as he has been at all of our town hall meetings. Please join me in welcoming our CFO, Nat Gandhi, who is actually slated to retire. He doesn't have a specific date. He left the date to me, so it won't be happening until 2019.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It has indeed been a great pleasure to work with you over all these years. First council member, then chairman, and now the mayor. And I must say, this is the best budget that I have seen in my 13 years as the chief financial officer. And I want to congratulate you for that. It is best budget because it is fiscally very prudent, like mayor, financially very responsible, and indeed takes into account the needs of our communities, our people, particularly Ward 4 and many wards around here. And above all, it is what is known as a structurally balanced budget, meaning that we are not going to spend anything more than what we take in. That means we are not going to use our saving account. That means we are going to stay within our debt cap, meaning that we are not going to borrow anything more than what we can afford to service in terms of our debts. So this is as good as it comes in terms of being financially responsible budget. That has not been the tradition in the district, as we all know. Mid-90s, we were very near insolvency. with $500 million deficit in our fund balance, and our bonds were rated junk bonds. Under Mayor's leadership, now we have $1.5 billion in fund balance. Our bonds, income tax bonds, are rated AAA, and we are indeed the envy of the rest of the country in terms of our fiscal probity, fiscal prudence, and financial well-being. I want to thank Mayor for his leadership and his stewardship of this district's finances. As we can see, coming over here, Mr. Mayor, I could see the revitalization that has happened under your leadership in this ward and elsewhere. There are also downsides. There is too much traffic because people want to shop. I remember working on those deals, the shopping mall that we have here, Best Buy and all that. So it is really a very, very good time. And it is because of all this that we are grateful to you for your leadership. Me and my colleague in the budget office, Gordon McDonald, David Umansky, Stella Hodge, and Steve Capella, we are here working with you and your staff. Absolutely first-rate administration that you have put together under Alan Liu. So we are very pleased to be here, and we are very pleased to certify this budget as balanced. Not only the balance in 2014, but also our 6-year capital budget and 5-year operating budget. So this is as good as it comes, and we want to thank you for that. Thank you, sir.
Again, Nat Gandhi has done an absolutely sterling job as our CFO, and we have put together a group of 7 people that are working to try to identify his successor, but that's going to be some pretty big shoes to fill. In fact, the co-chairs of the search committee are respectively Tony Williams, who was the mayor, and of course, was the CFO himself at one time, and Alice Rivlin, who is preeminent in terms of her financial expertise. So we've got a great group that's working together to be able to find the successor for Dr. Gandhi. So again, Dr. Gandhi, you set a high bar, and we hope to be able to meet that. So thank you very much. Our theme for this budget is investing for tomorrow. And just so you know that in terms of the capital budget for Ward 4 in 2014, there will be almost $65 million that will be spent in a variety of projects in Ward 4, some of which we'll talk about, some of which we won't talk about. And then over 6 years in Ward 4, over the next 6 years, the budget proposes to spend $365 million on projects in Ward 4, which I think is one of the higher levels of expenditures for the budget. Again, our theme is investing for tomorrow, and so much of what we're investing in this budget is looking down the road to try to make sure we continue to be a city that grows and grows tremendously. Dr. Gandhi alluded to the district's fiscal turnaround, and we've been pleased the last couple of years. If you look at that trend, go back to the 90s, and you will see that the District of Columbia government at one point in the mid-90s was at junk bond status. It had a $500 million deficit in the fund balance, and then around 2000 started to go up and went up tremendously, and around 2006 we hit a peak, which was around $1.5 billion. And then it went down, and we were actually on a course to have spent down the fund balance to a point where all that would have been left was the bond escrow fund and the contingency reserve that is required, both of those, one required by the Congress, the other required by those who buy our bonds to be able to support our capital investment projects. And one of the priorities that we established coming into office was to rebuild our financial wherewithal. And we have spent a lot of energy working with the CFO. We've spent a lot of energy and time and effort to be able to do that. The first year I was in office, we increased our fund balance by $249.5 million. And then the second year, which was the audit we got in February, $417 million, which has really substantially improved our reputation on Capitol Hill, as well as with the bond rating agencies. One of the things, we went to meet with the bond rating agencies in New York in February. And when we got back a few weeks later, we got the information from Standard & Poor's. Standard & Poor's actually gave us a bond upgrade. And let me tell you how important that is. I don't think there's any other jurisdiction in America that's gotten a bond upgrade. And Standard & Poor's was actually the agency that downgraded the United States government, which was the first time that ever happened, I think, in the history of this nation. So we feel very proud of the fact that we were able to accomplish that. We've done all this by staying within our 12% debt cap, which was legislation that I introduced working with the CFO when I was on the council. The charter actually allows the the debt cap, to go up to 17%. But the higher that goes, it means the less money we have to spend on operations in the District of Columbia, because you put all that together. Let me give just a crude example. If it were 17%, that means only 83% of the budget could be spent on operations. With it being 12%, we can spend 88% of the budget on operations. So we are pleased that we've been able to do a lot of these capital projects and have imposed upon ourselves a level of fiscal rigor that was unprecedented. And that has been impressive to the bond rating agencies. They are not only the people who establish the rates of what we spend on our bonds and the cost to us, but it's also like the good housekeeping seal. And that is, people look at those ratings and say, you know, if you guys are going up, you must be in pretty good shape. And I don't think there's any other jurisdiction in America that's gotten an upgrade in the last couple of years, given the perilous condition that finances have been in this nation. This budget imposes no new taxes and no new fees. No new taxes and no new fees. It also takes into consideration sequestration, which is a word that probably wasn't in anybody's vocabulary 2 years ago. We got a revenue estimate back in February that actually increases our revenue for fiscal year 13 by $190 million. It would have been higher. It would have been $240 million if, in fact, we didn't try to account for the revenue losses that we think we will experience as a result of sequestration. So we are working with the CFO. We think that we could lose as much as $50 million. Why? Because sales taxes will probably go down. Employment, the taxes from the employee taxes will probably go down, income taxes, because of the fact that there are people who will likely lose their jobs, especially people who are contractors of the federal government. They are likely to lose their jobs. And then property taxes likely go down also, because we have so many consultants that are consultants to the federal government, and they probably won't occupy as much space in the city. So all things considered, it's about a projection of about $50 million, and that has been baked into, if you will, the revenue estimate. Again, $190 million that we've accounted for, but it would have been $240 million otherwise. We also have not only not raised taxes, we have eliminated a couple of taxes. We're eliminating the municipal bond tax, which is probably good news for those people who live on fixed incomes, because they oftentimes, those bonds are bought by people who are investing their savings, investing what they have. And they have had this, we had a tax for a couple of years that was imposed upon people, and we have taken that out at this stage. And also, those who have been involved in co-ops actually were being double taxed. And that is, in addition to property taxes, we have what's called a possessory interest tax. So we have repealed the possessory interest tax also, which will reduce those taxes on people who live in that form of housing. This slide is one that we're all especially proud of, and that is to tell you where our money is coming from. For fiscal year 13, we are projecting an additional $166 million in income taxes, and for fiscal year 14, $152 million in additional taxes. And that is because of two or three factors. One, Our unemployment rate has come down. Our unemployment rate was 11.2% when we started. It has come down. We just got, right, Lisa, new information today. Is it okay to say, is it okay to reveal that information? It's not okay to reveal that information. But it didn't go up, okay? And it didn't stay the same, okay? Oh, Alan. I can't tell about how much it went down, though, right? Okay. So we are right now at 8.6%, which is the rate of unemployment the last time we got information that we could actually release, which was in February. We'll get March. When can we release March's information? When? Tomorrow. Tomorrow we can release it. At what time? I want you all to be the first on your block to know, okay? Well, let's put it this way. It'll be good news. In any event, in addition to unemployment going down, we've got a growing population, population increasing by 1,000 to 1,100 people a month, and job growth, which means we're increasing jobs. We have, since January of 2011, we have had a loss of 4,000 public sector jobs, but we've more than replaced that with 32,000 private sector jobs, which means we've increased the jobs in the District of Columbia by 28,000 net. And while I can't tell you whether we will increase, what we will increase jobs by, there will be an increase in jobs in the new report coming out. Is that right, Lisa? You know, her lips don't even move. She just nods. We also have had a growing and diversifying economy, so there's more business tax revenue. More businesses are developing and businesses are growing in the city, about $70 million in each of 13 and 14. And sales taxes are going up. And a lot of that is because we've been working to try to keep people spending their money in the District of Columbia. I like to talk about retail leakage. Who knows what retail leakage is? What is retail leakage?
Oh, that's when residents of the district have to go outside to buy things that they can't buy here.
That's exactly right. So we're trying to create more opportunities. One of those, frankly, is Costco. How many of you all have been to Costco since it opened? Lots of people. Good. That's great. Well, the first 3 days that Costco was open, which was last November 29th, 30th, and the 1st of December, they did in sales each day $750,000 in sales each of those 3 days. Now, in my own compulsive way, I measured retail leakage in the following fashion, and that is I periodically go in the parking lot at Costco, and what do? I look at the tags to see where the tags are from. And they're about half the tags, the times I've been in there, about half the tags have been from the District of Columbia, and the other half of the tags have been from various places. So not only are we stemming retail leakage by keeping people shopping in the District of Columbia, we're now starting to create retail leakage in Maryland and Virginia because they're coming into the District of Columbia to shop. Isn't that a good thing, you all? That has resulted, we will try to continue this trend. It has resulted in about $79 million additional in 13. But if you look at 14, it goes up to $93 million, which means we are projecting further growth and people doing business in the District of Columbia. The next slide shows you how the money is spent in this budget. And 40% of the dollars are spent in human support services. About $4 billion, local dollars, no, it's gross dollars, excuse me, being spent in the District of Columbia on human support services. 20% on public education, about $2 billion, and the rest in public safety, government direction and support, public works, and economic development. And the financing, if you remember the number I used of 12%, this budget has us at 10.3%, although that percentage will grow further as we get further into the capital improvement plan, which is a 6-year plan. And then if we get more money in future years, we'll have more cap room. Is that right? Right, John? Have more cap room. Now, one of the things we've tried to do is to be as transparent as we possibly can. and as inclusive as we possibly can. So the list that you see up there is a list of organizations that we met with even before the budget was done. Input that we wanted to get from people to say, here's what we think ought to be in the budget. We not only did that, but we met with a number of policymakers also to get their input on the budget. So there are about 30 plus 35 organizations listed there who we got information from, and much of that is reflected in this budget. Now, some of you have seen, some of you participated a little over a year ago in the One City Summit, which emanating from that was the One City Action Plan. And so what we have tried to do is what often isn't done, and that is take the dollars and frame them in terms of the plans that came out of the One City Summit, so people can see that their input was considered. And you'll see in shortly, one of the biggest items in this budget came right out of the One City Summit in February of 2012. I'm going to start with improving the quality of life for all. And in fact, one of the biggest items in this budget is we are proposing to invest $100 million in affordable housing next year in the District of Columbia. In fact, because we're getting additional money this year, it means we can even start this year once the budget is approved. And again, I'm hopeful that the council will go along with this because we have a crying need to be able to make sure that this continues to be a diverse city. We've got families who are homeless. We've got people who are at the edge. They may not be able to stay in this city because of the increasing cost of housing. So a $100 million investment will start the effort to create more affordable housing in the city. The effort will be to try to create 10,000 units of housing by 2020. 10,000 new units or rehab units of housing by 2020. That is a good start. We probably, if we had $500 million, we could probably spend it on affordable housing. It is the most important issue in this city at this stage. And guess where this issue was ranked number one? Anybody remember where it was ranked number one? In the One City Summit. And we obviously paid attention to the information that came out of there, and we've used it as a basis for this budget. We're going to invest about $87 million in the Housing Production Trust Fund, $67 million of money from Fiscal Year 13, another $20 million in Fiscal Year 14. Now, the first 2 years, as we tried to straighten out the district's finances, we had to do some things that were not very popular with us or anybody else, and that is we had to make choices, very tough choices, between investing in the local rent supplement program, which helps keep people where they are. It's like a voucher that people get. We pay for those vouchers, which buys down the cost of the rent for people to live in apartments and units across the District of Columbia. But we did that at the sacrifice of the Housing Production Trust Fund. We couldn't put the 15% of deed transfer and recordation taxes in the Housing Production Trust Fund that we normally would put in there. And we've had to do that for 2 years in order to balance the budget and get us going back in the right direction. Well, this year we're going to be able to do both. We will be able to put money into the local rent supplement program, and we'll put money in the Housing Production Trust Fund as well. The other $13 million you'll see on the next page is a variety of investments, including the local rent supplement program. How many of you all are familiar with the HPAP program, the Home Purchase Assistance Program? That is a program for first-time home buyers. We're putting $1 million into that. $1 million into rapid rehousing, which helps homeless families get themselves established once again. The Emergency Rental Assistance Program, which is a program for people who may be at the edge of becoming homeless. It helps to pay their rent and other expenses so they can stay where they are, which is, from a human perspective, more preferable, and certainly financially is more preferable. And then we are going to invest $3.1 million in victim services housing, which is around domestic abuse. And then we are losing, you will see later, we are losing about $4+ million in federal funds for victim services housing. We are also using our money to replace that. So we'll have $7+ million of local money that will go into victim services housing, which is a hugely important program. And then $4 million will go into creating a technology system that we desperately need in order to be able to manage the affordable housing stock. In one way or the other, we have 15 agencies that are involved in the creation and management of affordable housing. And we don't have a computerized approach to that. And this will help us create the automation, the technology that is needed to be able to accomplish that. Next area is ensuring that every neighborhood is safe. We want to be able to, for the first time, where's Chief Lanier? I know she was in here somewhere. Oh, there she is, all the way in the back. I don't know, when is the last time we had 4,000 police officers in the District of Columbia, Chief? Been a long time, hasn't it?
4 years.
4 years. Well, this will get us back up to 4,000 police officers. We are at 3,907.
3,907.
3,907.
And got a new class starting the academy next week.
So we will be close to 4,000 right at the beginning of the fiscal year, won't we?
Yes, we will.
Okay, which is great news. As the population grows, as challenges grow in the city, we want to make sure we are fully staffed under the Chief's leadership, which I think has been outstanding in the District of Columbia. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
We also are going to invest in new equipment. We're going to put $7.2 million a year into new police cruisers and other equipment for the MPD. Over 3 years, they will get a $21.6 million investment in equipment. And fire and emergency medical services will also get, where's Chief Ellaby? He's in here somewhere, isn't he? There he is, right there. He will get $8 million a year, $24 million, Chief, over the next 3 years to be able to invest in new equipment, a lot of which will be ambulances. We'll have, I think it's 140-some pieces of equipment that we're purchasing, about half of which will be ambulances. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes,
and
sir.
Other will be like
ladder trucks, pumpers.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll have not a completely new, newly equipped FMES, but close to it, won't we?
Yes, sir. By farther along than we were.
All right.
Thank you.
We're also going to invest in our cadet program. We want to have more of our firefighters and police officers who live in the District of Columbia, and one of the ways to do that is to invest in our cadet program. We're putting $700,000 in that. Right now, I think we have 25% of our police officers, 25% of our firefighters that live in the district, and 19% of our police officers. So we're going to try to increase that percentage, especially by investing in our cadet programs. I went to, about a year ago, a little over a year ago now, I went to one of the cadet programs at FMES, and we had, at the time, 30-some young people who became cadets. We graduated, 25, 27, something like that. And every one of those young people had been a graduate of a D.C. public high school, one of our traditional high schools, or one of our charter schools. And it was great to see that they were all living in the city. By the way, they started at $21,000, and then a year later they were at age, 19 maybe? 20 years old? They were making $42,000, which is not bad pay. What is that, about $20 an hour? And that's what we can do to try to keep our young people in the city. In Ward 4, we're replacing Engine House 22. We got $12 million in the budget to be able to do that. And I already talked about the domestic violence funds that we're going to invest in. We are also going to work to protect our most vulnerable residents. The city made a decision, a policy decision, a number of years ago to not really implement the new TANF rules. Back in 1996, the federal government changed those rules, and it said that after 5 years, except under certain circumstances, you were no longer eligible to receive TANF support, which was the old AFDC program, and people, call it welfare. The district did not do that. I think it was a benevolent decision that was made, and the federal government, which was paying half of it, no longer did that. Anybody who was over 60 months that didn't meet certain criteria, then the district had to pay 100 cents on the dollar. I think the downside of that decision is that it doesn't help people get to a place of not being dependent. It really keeps people very dependent, and in the course of it, continues to cost, has a toll in terms of human outcomes as well as financial outcomes for the city and for the people who are involved. So David Burns, where's David Burns? There he is right there. David has been spearheading. David has done this in 3 different states, and we asked him to come to the district when I became the mayor and said, David, you got a lot of responsibilities, but the principal responsibility will be to reform our TANF program, and in the course of it, get people jobs, have people have outcomes so that they move from being on welfare to actually have a job. We created a new Virginia Williams Center, where they now are working with homeless families and people on TANF at the same time, because those who are homeless families, almost without exception, right, David, also are eligible for TANF. And every one of those folks who's on TANF will have an assessment by the end of September, and then they will start moving them into the job. So this is intended to be a constructive outcome as we move people off of welfare support. They'll get better case management. They will obviously get training as well. We're going to invest $1.5 million in homeless youth. That's one of the things I used to do when I was at Covenant House. $500,000 this year and $1 million in fiscal year 14. And then we're putting $6 million into making sure that people's benefits can continue until they finish their assessments and have a chance to be trained and then go to work. So this is a benevolent approach also, but the idea is that at the end of the road, you are expected to be able to get a job rather than have this just continue on forever. We also are proposing to create something called the One City Fund. It will have $15 million in it. I think we had a hearing today. This would create an opportunity for nonprofit organizations to be able to get grants. There would be 4 areas in which you can get a grant. If you can't find yourself as a nonprofit in one of those categories, I'm not sure what you do every day. One of them is improving the quality of life, educating and preparing the workforce, and there's a couple of other categories, one of which is sustainability, and I won't go into all of that. But it will cover education, job training, health, services for seniors, arts, public safety, as well as environmental programs. People can apply for these grants. It will not be administered by the district government. It will be administered by the Community Foundation, so that we're trying to take the politics out of it, the concern that you will get a grant because of merit, purely. And that's what the Community Foundation does. It administers about 700 funds. Terry Freeman is the director of that. She's been doing it for years and has a sterling track record. The history has been that there have been earmarks given to organizations. I hate earmarks. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't think that it's fair. Some organizations get money, other organizations don't. And people ask the question of why did X get a grant and why did Y get nothing? And there's never a good answer. Because those, unfortunately, have been, and I don't mean in any negative sense, they've just been politically based decisions. This will be an objective approach that will give nonprofits, which do a great job in this city, a chance to be able to get additional dollars to be able to facilitate the growth and development of the District of Columbia. We are going to invest in our libraries in this budget also. We are expanding the hours. We're investing $8 million in expanding the hours of our libraries. The libraries, every library in the city will be open 7 days a week as a result of this. Monday through Thursday, they'll be open until 9 o'clock at night. And then they'll be open on, of course, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays as well. In addition to that, we are going to invest in the modernization of the Central Library downtown, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library, which is desperately in need of modernization. We've been working with a number of folks. Folks are connected with the library, the Board of Trustees, 2 or 3 firms in the city, to be able to figure out how we might be able to reduce the cost, because it probably would have cost between somewhere between $150 and $200 million. But the plan is to be able to build 4, 5, or 6 more floors on top of the library that then would be used for housing or office space that would generate revenue to be able to support the modernization of the library. So it will cost the city, which we have in this budget, $103 million to do this, and then there will be revenue-generating opportunities to be able to cover the rest of the costs. We also are investing in the Cleveland Park, Palisades, and finishing the Woodridge Library, which is a $16.5 million library. Next year, it'll take another $4.8 million in order to be able to do that. We also are going to continue to invest in our seniors. We have committed ourselves to being an age-friendly city. Dr. Thompson, who is our director of the Office of Aging Services, has the responsibility for being able to do that. I won't go into all the details, but one of the programs that's important to us is Aging in Place, so that people who want to stay where they are, they can help to be supported by the city to stay where they are. In addition to that, we're providing additional staff now to Dr. Thompson and OAS to be able to go into our nursing homes, because there probably are people there who don't necessarily need to be in a nursing home. So he will have staff that will be able to go in there, transitional staff to be able to go in there to do assessments of people, and they will be able to come out and have other places to be able to live rather than being in a nursing home. I already talked about the municipal bond tax, so I won't go back to that. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the United Medical Center, which the city, almost through default, is operating at this stage. It was turned over to a private organization to operate, and they went bankrupt. And the city took it over so the hospital wouldn't close. It's in Ward 8. It's on the perimeter of the city near Prince George's County. And we've now brought in a firm. There's a contract for 2 years, $12.7 million to help turn around the business operations, and we've already begun to find some interesting things at the hospital. I won't go into the details of that, but we're already starting to identify some areas for savings and experience what those savings are. In addition to that, we want to try to solidify the future of the hospital. We should not be in the business of operating hospitals because we don't do a very good job of operating hospitals. So Huron right now is operating the hospital. It will for the next couple of years, but then we want to identify an operator that will come in and operate the hospital on an ongoing basis. And one of the ways that we think that will be facilitated is by building a new hospital on the grounds. How many of you all are familiar with UMC? When it started out way many years ago, it was K. Fritz Memorial Hospital. And then it became the Greater Southeast Hospital. And now it's the United Medical Center. It is a huge cavernous building. It has space for 450 people. You will never see a hospital again that has a need for 450 beds because we're in a different era. The reality is that, you know, some conditions that people went into the hospital for as recently as 15 to 20 years ago, you don't anymore. It is outpatient work. And then there are other situations in which people went in the hospital for 5, 6, or 7 days. Now it's 1 day and out. So there is no need. If you go down to the hospital, you see these large spaces that are not even being occupied. So the idea is to build a new hospital that the city will own, but we will have a private operator to come in and operate it. Why? Because if something happens with that operator, the city is not left vulnerable. We can find somebody else then to operate the hospital services because we will own the hospital. We're going to invest next year in the budget $20 million to be able to start that process. The cost will help to be determined by Huron. It ultimately could be $100 to $150 million to build a new hospital, but it will be a lot smaller than what we have down there at this point. Again, improving the quality of life for all. We are investing in the arts, $250,000 in doing a strategic plan to really figure out how we want to grow the arts sector in the District of Columbia. We are investing money in the capital budget. We're going from $2.7 million to $5 million, which means that over 6 years we'll have $30 million to invest in public art, virtually all of which will be produced by artists in the District of Columbia who will work with the Commission on Arts and Humanities to be able to do that. And we, in the contingency budget, we put additional money that if we are successful in getting additional dollars in one of our next revenue estimates, that would be one of the priorities that's established. How many of you all know we have a District of Columbia Archives? Not many people know that. I'm not talking about the National Archives, you know, down on Constitution Avenue or wherever it is. I'm talking about the District of Columbia. It's located on Naylor Court, and a lot of people don't even know where Naylor Court is. Honestly, how many people here know where Naylor Court is? Like nobody, or one person. You're the only person in here that knows where it is. Good for you. But the idea is to really upgrade our own archives. Do you know we have artifacts in our archives that date back to 1790? And nobody goes there to see those things because they don't know where the place is. So we're going to put $4 million into the budget, the capital budget for next year, to be able to do that. And then over 3 years, right, John, $44 million to create a brand new archives in the District of Columbia. And wouldn't that be a great place for our children to be able to go to see the artifacts that are associated with the history of the District of Columbia? We're going to continue to invest in our recreational programs. Some of you may know that we put in $30 million for 32 playgrounds, a number of which are here at Tacoma, Emory, Upshur Park, Fort Stevens, and Hamilton. We put, on average, about $900,000 to $1 million in each one of these 32 playgrounds. The planning started, which was done with the community. I know Jesus is not here, but John, where's John? Is John? Oh, Jesus is here. Okay, I know you were out for a while. Well, Jesus Aguirre and John Stokes are the dynamic duo who get incredible things done in our Department of Parks and Recreation. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all. You all led the planning effort. The planning effort started right before Christmas, right? All the plans have been done. They were done with the community. The work is now starting to get those playgrounds finished, and by probably midsummer, all the playgrounds, all 32 playgrounds across the city will have been completed, including these 5 here in Ward 4. We promised the people who were involved in that horrific metro accident, remember that? That horrific metro accident? That we would create a memorial park for them. And we now have worked on the planning with the families, with Metro, with a variety of folks, and we have $2 million in the budget to be able to create that park, which will be right here in Ward 4 for everybody to be able to visit and be a part of. We are moving ahead with our streetcar program. $400 million will be, you like streetcars, huh? We used to have streetcars in the District of Columbia, didn't we? We did. And some of y'all pretending like you're not old enough to be able to remember streetcars, all right? We did. And we're bringing back streetcars. I think it was a bad decision in the first place to stop using those streetcars. They certainly will be a much more modern form of streetcar, and they won't get backed up like they did back in the day. But there will be a much more modern form of streetcar, and that's what they will look like. See what they look like up there, down in the right-hand corner? I've been to Portland, Oregon a couple times to see their streetcar program, and it is really a well-operated program. In fact, until recently, they had 85% of their streetcar line that was free because it created so much economic development in the city of Portland. We're not going to be able to do that, but it won't be as expensive as it might be because it will create additional economic development. We're also going to invest further in bike lanes, streetscapes, the bike share program. We're adding 10 stations. Wow, I'm sure glad you came tonight. We're going to put your name on the budget. Did you see it? We also are reopening, I know Lucinda is in here somewhere, we're reopening the Georgetown DMV. We just opened a new DMV in Rhode Island Row, so we'll have, what, 4 DMVs now around the city, Lucinda? How many? 4, right? And if you, has anybody seen the one on Rhode Island Row? Yeah. right over by the Metro. It's real nice. It's very nice. And this one will be too. This has been completely modernized, and we're putting money now in for the staffing of the Georgetown one, so that if you don't go online, which you can do a lot of your DMV business now online, you can go to one of the 4 around the city. And we're fully funding our WMATA budget. The operating budget is $274 million, and then the capital budget is around $135, $140 million. So we're putting about $400 million into WMATA to be able to make sure the metro system continues to operate. Now, the next one is something that I'm really happy that we're doing, and that is people have had to pay for the replacement of their super cans for several years now. We are going to you're not going to have to do that anymore. Starting next year, we have $2 million in the budget for each year to be able to replace super cans. We're going to be able to replace all of them, everything, over a period of 5 years. But the first 2 years, all the super cans in the city will be replaced. And then for the next 3 years, we're going to replace the recycling cans with much larger ones so that people will be able to do more recycling than they do now. So everybody will get a new bin and a new recycling and a new super can. We also, y'all familiar with these trash cans on the street, right? They don't have any lids on them, which means that, and we got some pretty crafty rats in this city, okay? Yeah, so they're going to be rat-proofed as well. I don't know exactly what it is that they're going to do to rat-proof them. DPW can tell you the answer to that, but I'm sure everybody will be excited to know that they won't have to walk up to a trash can and maybe be confronted with a 4-legged monster in the trash can. We also have solved a problem, and I want to give credit to our city administrator. Where'd he go? Where'd Mr. Liu go? There he is over there. He led a task force, the Bloomingdale-Leroy Park Task Force, which solved, and I mean this literally, I don't mean this with any hype, a 100-year-old problem, because flooding has gone on in Bloomingdale for 100 years. And that problem has now been solved. The work is going on, and the people in Bloomingdale, 10 months from now, 8 months, 9 months from now, will have a solution in place that will capture storm water, hold that storm water, and release it in an orderly fashion rather than running down the streets of Bloomingdale. And in addition to that, we are giving raises to everybody who is employed by the District of Columbia government. And that will be to the union and non-union workers. $56 million will be invested in raises, and they will be effective April 1st, which means they will be retroactive to April 1st. So if you are not in a union, your raise will be effective April 1st. If you are in a union that has already completed your bargaining agreement, and the 8 of those that have, I think we've covered already, is it right, 70? I don't know if Natasha's in here or not, but 70 to 74% of our employees are already covered, either because they're not part of a union or their bargaining agreements have already been renegotiated and approved. And we hope to get the rest of them done as quickly as we can. And we're covering our pension is probably one of the best funded pensions in the nation. And that is 104% funded. Now, we are going to invest about $80 million in our schools. Some of the schools have gone up, some of the schools have gone down because the enrollments have changed. We are looking at a new funding formula for our schools. We have what's called an adequacy study that is being conducted now. And adequacy means, are we funding schools in the best possible way? We will have the results of that study by the end of September. And it may result in us doing differently than what we do now. Right now, it's a funding formula that bases is a certain amount of money for each pupil, and the school then gets funded for the amount of students that it has. For the first couple of years, we did everything we could to hold harmless schools whose enrollment was going down, and we just couldn't do it anymore. So there are adjustments in enrollments that have been made that could have been made 2 years ago. And if we have a different way of funding our schools, we'll look forward to being able to do that, because I know that's caused some angst for a number of people. One of the things I'm especially proud of, because I spent a lot of my career working in the field of disabilities, and that is, when I came into office, this government had spent on private tuition in private schools on children with disabilities, the year before we got here, $168 million on private schools. And we made a commitment that we were going to bring kids back into the system. And the only way you could do that responsibly was to increase the capacity of our schools, our charter schools and our DC public schools, to be able to provide those services. Well, we have brought down that number tremendously. We made a commitment to bring down the number by 50% by 2014. I think we're going to get to 50% before 2014, the way this is moving along. And if you look at the budget, it no longer is $168 million. It will be for fiscal year 14, it will be $80 million. And we've taken that money for the most part and reinvested it back into our public schools to serve children with disabilities so that they can be served in our own schools. Also, we are investing, and I know there's some people here tonight who are interested in this issue. We're investing $101 million in Roosevelt High School and $103 million in Coolidge High School. And for those who, I just talked to Terry earlier, and we're going to try to figure out how we can start the planning, get the SIT team started in 14 in the next fiscal year, okay? So that's not going to break the bank, and we're going to try to figure that out, Terry. Will that work for you? Okay. You know, Coolidge has one of the best alumni associations in the city. Yeah. I say that, by the way, as a graduate of a DC public school, of Dunbar High School. So, and I say that to the folks who are in our alumni. I said, you know what, you really want to see how it's done? Go to Coolidge's Alumni Association. I rarely miss that breakfast, man. That is a nice event that is held down at the Navy Yard every year in October. And we usually leave there with, with a little bet on the table about the football game. And I haven't walked away yet with losing the football game. So, our fire chief went to Coolidge also. Did you all know that? Yeah. Yeah, we went to the, yeah, Quanda went there too, right? Our deputy mayor for public safety went to Coolidge also. They're standing back there now trying to conspire how to beat Dunbar. In any event, it always is a healthy, it's a fun competition. Ellaby and I were at the football game a couple of years ago together up at Coolidge. That was one of the best high school football games I've ever seen. The final score was 43-42, and it was won in overtime. Nobody should have lost that game because those teams played so well in that game. But there was a team that won. I won't say who it was. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, Dunbar's basketball team hasn't been so good in recent years. But Coolidge was excellent this year. And the coach is an excellent coach also. He does a great job, not only on the court, but working with those young men also. In any event, that's what we're investing, over $100 million in each one of those schools. Roosevelt in 14, and we'll get the planning. Hopefully we can get the planning started for Coolidge in 14. We'll work on that and try to get it done. In fact, the lion's share of the money is in the high school, at the high school level, is being invested in Ward 4 schools. We got $488 million, $169 million being invested in 14, $101 million of which will go to Ward 4. We also are investing in our middle schools. We got a couple of middle schools. We will have finished all the middle schools by the end of this plan. We're investing in Brookland, which is in Ward 5, Shaw, which is going to be rebuilt, that's in Ward 6, and Stewart Hobson. So all the middle schools will be finished in this 6-year plan. We're also investing money in in a lot of our elementary schools, $164 million in 14. And then the schools in Ward 4 that we're investing in, Man is $22 million, Shepherd $14.5 million, West $25 million, Lafayette $46.6 million, Powell $6.8 million, Truesdale $13.6 million, Raymond 16.6. How many have seen the new Raymond Recreation Center? It's nice, isn't it? It's very nice. We just dedicated that a few weeks ago. Still work being done on the outside, but the inside is done. Whittier, $12.1 million, and LaSalle, $5.2 million in terms of the elementary schools, all in Ward 4. We also are investing money in a special education intervention effort. Now, this sounds odd, what I'm going to say, and that is we're increasing the level from 50% to 25%. You're like, 50, raise it from 50 to 25. Isn't that a reduction? We do diagnostic work with children based on the level of their disability. And right now, the city only covers those children who are at a 50% severity level and worse, 50% to 100%. We recognize that making those investments early in those children will pay off. So we're going to increase to 25%. So all the children who are between 25% and 50% now will be covered also, so that we can try to catch these disabilities early enough to get them into school and into programs that will address some of those issues. We're going to invest $1 million in truancy prevention. Our deputy mayor for education, Abigail Smith, who I know Abby's in here somewhere, and B.B. Otero. There they are right there. They're working jointly on the truancy initiative. I guess probably, I don't know, in a month or two or three or four, you'll have the plan finished, and then we'll figure out whether we need more dollars to be able to be spent on that. But we recognize truancy is a huge chronic problem in the District of Columbia. And some of these kids who get into difficulty are kids who should be in school and they're not in school. It's not a problem that's unique to the District of Columbia, but nobody cares about, they want it solved here. They don't want to talk about Baltimore, or Philadelphia, or New York, or San Francisco, or Detroit. And we're going to work on that. We're going to look at best practices elsewhere and hopefully be able to solve this issue. Next slide. We are bringing back career and technical education to our schools. Bad decision to have taken those programs out. Some of them were outdated, but we should have kept them contemporary, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are people who have heard that Spingarn High School is closing. Spingarn High School is not closing. Spingarn is going to be modernized, and it will be home to career and technical education programs in transportation and in healthcare. And if you look at those designs up there, what you see is the car barn. The first streetcar line, by the way, will open this year on 8th Street out to Benning Road. It will go out to Spingarn High School as the first leg of that line. We're going to build a car barn, if you can see in this design right here, up top. The first building is the new car barn that's going to be built. And right behind that is Spingarn High School. So we're going to be able to have internship opportunities for our young people, our students who are at Spingarn right there in the car barn. That doesn't look like a typical car barn. I know we've had car barns in Ward, over on East Capitol Street. We had one right here in Ward 4 on 14th Street. That doesn't look like the car barn that you're accustomed to, right? And if you see inside the design of it, there are classrooms in there. This will be a 21st century car barn that we are building. And that will be built soon after the streetcar line is up and operational. And it will serve as a training opportunity also for our young people. Metro has, on average, 50 jobs that are vacant a month, 50 jobs. And those jobs pay, they pay like $35, $40 an hour to start. So we want to train our young people for those jobs. Not every young person wants to go to college or go right away. So they should be able to go into a job, and that's why career and technical education is so important for these students, and that's what Spingarn High School will become. We're going to spend $26 million on modernizing Spingarn, and then $10 million on designing and constructing the car barn. We've also met with the Department of Transportation, the Federal Department of Transportation, met with the Secretary of Transportation, LaHood, last week. And they are interested in this project also because they see it potentially as a prototype for other schools around the nation, and they may be interested in assisting us with getting this done. The final area is growing and diversifying our economy, our district's economy. We've got a lot of projects that we're working on. Victor, what's the official crane count today? 57 cranes actively at work in the District of Columbia. Development taking place everywhere.
57.
Development taking place everywhere in the District of Columbia. Skyland, which I have worked on myself since before I became a council member, worked on it as a Ward 7 council member, worked on it as a council chair, and worked on it as mayor. It's a very complicated process. We have stripped away virtually every legal impediment at this stage. We have started tearing down the buildings. And for those of you, how many of you have ever seen Skyland? It's in Ward 7. It is right there where Naylor Road, Alabama Avenue, and Good Hope Road all converge. And it really is one of the worst looking places I think I've ever seen masquerading as a shopping center. I ride past it every day, because I live around the corner from it. And the people over there have been incredibly patient. This is the longest undelivered project in the history of the earth, I think. It goes back to 1989, 1990 when this started. And we're going to get this finished, and we are really in the throes of getting it finished right now. That's what it will look like over on the right-hand side. It will be anchored by Walmart. They stepped up and said, because nobody else would come in and anchor, they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't want to be in that area of the city. So they're going to anchor it. And we've got other stores that are now starting to step up with the developer to anchor Skyland. We're going to put $40 million. I was able to get a $40 million TIF for Skyland when I was the council member in Ward 7, and that will be part of the investment, and then we're sure we'll throw off more money than that to be able to repay the TIF. Investing in Poplar Point, St. Elizabeth's. We are turning St. Elizabeth's into the east side because we own that. St. Elizabeth's will be turned into, in part, a technology campus. And we've been working with 3 firms to develop innovation centers, a firm called Sidlam, which is a French-based firm. A second firm is SmartBIM, which you probably have never heard of. And then the third firm, I'm sure you all have heard of, a firm that is headquartered in Redmond, Washington, a firm called Microsoft, which is, they haven't signed on the dotted line yet, but I'm very optimistic that this is going to happen, and that will anchor the technology presence at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. And by the way, in about 3 or 4 months, we will be opening with the federal government, the Coast Guard will be coming to the west side of the St. Elizabeth's campus. They are bringing 3,700 employees to Ward 8 in the District of Columbia. It's one of the reasons why we need to continue to invest with all the people coming into the city, continue to invest in our own public safety apparatus in the city. And on the east side, right, Victor? On the east side, we are investing in a food pavilion because we want to be able to keep the business in the District of Columbia, not have people go outside the city for lunch or whatever the case may be. So the food pavilion, I think the first stage of it will be finished. Where's Victor? Oh, August 31st? August 31st. Which is when Coast Guard is arriving, right?
Yes, August 31st. August 31st.
Okay.
And that is when they arrive, yes.
Okay, and that's when the Coast Guard arrives.
Yes,
so
sir.
The food pavilion will be finished then, Coast Guard arrives then, and we'll be working to try to market it so that they do their business in the District of Columbia. We have now out the request for, well, we're further along in that, request for expressions of interest from potential developers at Walter Reed,
Yes, and we should have a short list next week announced.
Okay, we already got the proposals, right?
Yes, we have received 9
Were there
proposals.
9?
9, yes.
9. So we'll have a short list of those reduced number next week?
Yes,
Okay,
next week, an announcement.
okay, right,
Yes.
okay. I'm not trying to get you to announce anything tonight, Victor. I got it, okay? I understand that would not be good. And then once the developer is selected, that project will move along apace as well. We're going to invest in a new Frederick Douglass Bridge. That's right over there near the ballpark. It is really on its last leg. It is well overdue in terms of being rebuilt. $622 million, a lot of which will be federal money that will be invested in rebuilding the bridge and rebuilding the infrastructure around the bridge. So that is in the budget for this year. We hope it stays in the budget, and we'll create a new presence over there as well. $34 million in great streets, a lot of money invested in our local streets and sidewalks, $170 million, which will be spread out across the wards. I don't know how many of you all have seen our sustainability plan. Anybody seen our sustainability plan? Good. If you read the Washington Informer, somebody gave me today, they've done a supplement. I don't know if anyone has seen it. It's really extremely well done. A supplement that talks solely about sustainability. And that is the future of the District of Columbia. Staff has gone through our budget and identified 200 capital projects that advance our sustainable DC plan in terms of transportation, water, which includes Bloomingdale, food, the built environment. We have, by the way, more square feet of green roofs in this city than any other city, per capita, than any other city in America. That includes cities like New York, Chicago, San Francisco. And I think we have more LEED certified buildings also. In fact, the standard has become not just LEED certified, but LEED Gold or LEED Platinum, which is one of the highest levels of LEED certification. And we're building a new Ballou High School, and it will be one of the most energy efficient high schools. And as we do the others, we'll take whatever we learn from that and be able to incorporate it into buildings like Roosevelt and Coolidge as well, which will save on operating costs. We are investing once again in our budget challenge, our sustainability budget challenge, in which DC government agencies can apply for grants to have interesting projects on sustainability. MPD has an interesting project, and that is it deals with idling of cars. And there's probably somebody that can better explain it in here than me. But it saves on the energy, the expenditure, if you will, of energy in the fuel of our cars. The last two slides I will mention are, as much as we've been able to do in this budget, we're not able to do everything that we wanted to do. So we said, okay, those things that we can't do, we'd like to set up a list of things that we'd like to invest in if more money becomes available. And that includes things like infant and toddler services. By the way, are you all aware that we have the most robust child care, not child care, I won't say that, that's a bad choice of words, early childhood education program in America at this stage? Every 3- and 4-year-old whose family wants them to have a seat in a public education or publicly supported program has that opportunity. What we're trying to get right now is the distribution, because we have some areas where the demand exceeds the number of seats we have, and we have some areas where we don't have enough children to fill up those seats. But when you add up the numbers, we have enough seats for every 3- and 4-year-old in the District of Columbia. We're now going down to our infants and toddlers and investing there. I saw Brenda. Is Brenda Donald still here? Yeah. I want to mention something. We have set out to try to really address foster care. And Brenda is our director of the Child and Family Services Agency. Not so long ago, we had 3,300 children in foster care. And we have brought those numbers down. Believe it or not, we are below 1,400
Yes.
children in foster care now. Is that right, Brenda?
Thank you. Yes. 1,398.
And she has done a phenomenal job leading that agency. What ward do you live in?
Ward 4, right down
All
the
right.
street.
And we're going to, we are, one of the good things is the number of children coming into the system has reduced tremendously. And now we're working to try to get more children out through adoption or repatriating them with their families or whatever the case may be. So we can accelerate both of those. Go ahead, Brenda.
I was going to say, Mr. Mayor, and since you have the mic, we need more DC foster parents, and there are a couple of them that are in the House tonight, and we need them to spread the word because we need to keep our kids in DC. Too many of them are in Maryland. So that's the other goal. So come see me, please.
All right.
Thanks for the commercial time.
Isn't that phenomenal, though? That means that kids are being, we're helping to repair families or keep kids with their families. To go from, you know, a number of years ago of 3,300 children. Many of you all will recall that Jack's situation, which was absolutely horrific, that occurred over in Southeast. To go from 3,300 to be now down below 1,400 children in foster care is really absolutely phenomenal. You know, as someone who spent virtually a lifetime in human services, it means an awful lot to me to see that young children are having a chance to be with their families. And the more we can emphasize on those investments at the early end, like early childhood education and infant and toddler services, the more likely we are to be able to keep these families together in the first place. All right, we'll be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have at this point. Hopefully you will feel that this is, I mean, no budget is going to solve all the problems, of course, but we think we've addressed a lot of the challenges in the city, and we'll continue to try to do that. Yes, ma'am, your hand was up first.
First of all, I want to congratulate Washington, D.C. for the bully program that you started. I think that's excellent, and I think all the other states should follow suit.
Thank you.
I'm glad that we're not the state, but we're the first.
There you go. And maybe one day we will be a state.
Yeah, hopefully. I wonder, everything sounds okay, like he said, but the $400 million that you're going to have for the streetcars, I think you need to take some of that money and put it in for small businesses, put more money into the small business to incorporate that and some of that money there. Also, to incorporate some of the money into senior citizens, because when you go to the hospitals now, the first thing they want to know is your insurance. They don't want to know your name. They want to know your insurance. So, another thing to follow up on that.
I'll tell you what, since you have several questions, let me try.
No, this is the last one because it's Medicaid. A lot of the hospitals now do not want to accept Medicaid patients because of the money that they do not get, or whatever the case may be, for these senior citizens. So that, I think that needs to be looked into. Last but not least, why the old post office building had to be turned down, or whatever Donald Trump wants to do.
It's not going to be torn down. I'll answer that one first. It's going to be renovated and turned into a hotel. And of course, that is a federal building that they put out for a bid. But no, the old post office building would not be disappearing. Now, a couple of the programs you mentioned, let me make sure that I'll do the best job I can for making this clear, but we have two different budgets. One is called the operating budget, and the other is the capital budget. The money going into streetcars is in the capital budget, and we couldn't use that. We can't use that money for, like what you were saying, using it for services to seniors. That has to be a different kind of funding stream that's available to us. So when you see like money going into streetcars, it means that that's money that we have borrowed over a period of years that all has to go in then to buildings or streetcars or, you know, something tangible that you can see. The budget where you would find the senior services will be in a completely different budget altogether. When we come out and discuss these, we discuss them together because people are interested in what kind of schools are being built, or what kind of recreation centers are being built, or what kind of libraries, but all of those are a different budget in the city. The programs that you asked about are in what's called the operating budget. Now, with accepting Medicaid, one of the things that we will have by 2014 is everybody will have insurance in the District of Columbia. But you are right. We've had some places that don't want to accept Medicaid because they don't like the Medicaid rates. I don't know if is Wayne Turnage in here?
Yes.
Wayne, this lady is asking me a question about Medicaid rates. Can you give him the microphone? She was asking me about Medicaid rates and the fact that there apparently are some health care providers that don't accept Medicaid because they feel the rates are too low. So maybe you can explain that. This lady right here. Wayne, by the way, is our Director of Healthcare Finance and does, I don't know, I haven't met every healthcare finance director in the country, but if there's any better than him, they must be mighty damn good.
Thank you. Healthcare providers do have the discretion to tell the district that they would choose not to participate in the program if they believe our rates are too low. Most public insurance programs do pay rates that are slightly lower than the commercial rates, but the district has one of the most aggressive reimbursement programs in the country. On the hospital side, we pay probably the highest rates in the country, but for some other providers, the rates might not be as high as needed. So that's an issue that we are constantly working with and trying to balance the need to pay higher rates against the fiscal impact it has on the district.
We actually, I think I'm right in this, we have one of the highest rates of coverage even before we got to the Affordable Care Act, which people popularly call Obamacare. We have had about 95% of our adults who are covered, which is the second highest in the nation. And then 96+% of our children are covered, which is the highest in the nation of any state in the United States. All right. Frank?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to know, are you investing any money in allied health sciences? And if so, what training is being provided for citizens or children who would be eligible for allied health sciences?
The short answer is yes. We're doing it through the community college, I think, principally now. But in our economic development plan, and Victor, you might want to speak to this in more detail, we're looking at Macmillan. We have a plan to be able to create a model medical facility at Macmillan. And one of the reasons why we're doing it at Macmillan is because there are so many opportunities for jobs with Children's Hospital, with the Hospital Center, MedStar, with the Rehab Hospital, with the Veterans Administration Hospital, and then around the corner, you got Howard University Hospital. So the short answer is yes, we are investing in allied health. Are we doing enough? No. And that's one of the reasons why we want to create this program that we're going to create at Macmillan. Victor, you want to add to that?
Excellent.
You covered it all, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor Gray, my name is Matt Lynn, and I'm a DC statehood advocate and supporter. And I see that DC, that we talk a lot about supporting statehood and increasing self-determination, but I'm wondering what items in the budget are being allocated to putting resources into the fight for statehood.
That's a good question, and you might not be aware that we are prohibited from investing in that kind of lobbying. It's another way in which we are treated as, in my opinion, a group of second-class citizens in the District of Columbia. But we are prohibited from investing in that. I actually have on the contingency list trying to, for the first time, provide some support for the offices of our shadow representatives. We have 2 shadow senators and a representative that work on these issues. But for the most part, we are prohibited from being able to make those investments. So it would be a good thing for people to fight for. I hope, by the way, people will go out next Tuesday. There's an election next Tuesday, but there's also a referendum on there to support budget autonomy for the District of Columbia. Based on the financial presentation you've heard tonight, do you think that we can manage our own money in the District of Columbia? Why don't we go back and forth? We have a, okay, go right ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
My question just has to do with the diverse communities that make up the district, primarily immigrants, and even more specific than that, African immigrants. And I'm wondering, in what ways do you see the budget reflecting the needs of immigrants who primarily rely on community service organizations to learn about sort of the services that that they need and utilize?
Our Office of Community Affairs, and I know Steve Goulardet is in here somewhere, but our Office of Community Affairs has several offices under it. The Office of African Affairs, the Office of Latino Affairs, that are specifically focused on those populations. You may be aware also that I have been a very vocal supporter of immigration reform. I was at the rally that took place down at the Capitol. I spoke at the rally because I think immigration reform is long overdue in this country. It really is grossly unfair. We have 11 million, undocumented immigrants in this country, and many of those people are in one way or the other part of our workforce. And frankly, it would just make infinite sense to me to be able to have immigration reform that would lead to people being able to feel more comfortable being in this country. We have a lot of people that won't even participate in health care programs because they're afraid if they give information about themselves that they will be deported as a result of it. And that creates a health dilemma, it seems to me. So both of those offices, I saw Steve a second ago. Where is he? You want to add anything to that, Steve? The question was, what do we do around services, I guess immigrant services in particular, around people who perhaps have immigrated from an African nation or some of our Latino neighbors as well?
Well, the first thing that we do is we hook them up with that affinity office. So the Office of Latino Affairs or the Office of Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs. And African Affairs as well. And they have contacts with the services that are specific to that population. So we try to get them to those offices, and then they service them from there.
Well, there's several ways how we deal with them, depending on what the issue is. But we also have Spanish speakers in our office, so we serve that way. We also have several grants that we give out to the community to make sure that population is served. So inside, we also, depending on the issue, we'll refer them to other government agencies to make sure they're getting served the way they need to get served. And we also actually go out into the community to make sure they're served. So there's several ways, depending on the issue. Okay? Welcome.
And just one more thing. Additionally, each agency also has developed, by trainings through the affinity offices, cultural competency as well as language access. There is a law that requires language access in each of the agencies. So the agencies build up their own capacity to deal with these issues, not just from a language point of view, but also from a legal point of view as well.
Yes, our agency also put together different brown bag lunches for DC government employees to be more culturally sensitive in working with different immigrant population. So, I was saying that our agency also puts together different brown bag lunches for DC government employees to help them become better service providers for the immigrant populations.
All right, and these folks are around if you want to. This is the Office of Asian Pacific Islander Affairs you just heard from. You just heard from Roxana. Roxana, by the way, was with me when we did the march down on the immigration reform. 50,000 people who were there, and we were proud to be a part of that and got the chance. We were the first public jurisdiction to speak. Is that right? And we also were one of the few, I think, that extended that issued a mayor's order on secure communities, to ban secure communities. You're welcome. All right, we're going to go from one side to the other. The lines are a little bit long, so I'm going to ask you all, please, no lengthy questions. Just give your question, and we'll try to give you an answer as complete as we can. If you want to make a speech, trust me, we apparently got a lot of people out in the hall that you could go talk to and give a speech to.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. I'm Jeff Kennedy. Thank you for having the town hall. I attended 3 events, one at the Department of Education January 29th, where residents of the district said their civil rights were being violated by DC Public Schools. Another last weekend at the Department of Education where people across the country were saying that their civil rights were being violated. And my question is, in the District of Columbia, since you have one civil rights lawsuit in court right now around school closings, and since we've just found out, or I've known about it for a while, a very serious allegation of cheating in 2008, what do you propose to do, or what conversations do you are you going to have with the chancellor around these issues?
Well, first of all, the chancellor and the deputy mayor, you know, they're very involved in these issues. I don't know what you're asking me around the. I mean, there was a hearing that was held in the council today.
Yeah, in that hearing, the council members really didn't know what right questions to ask. So
yeah, well,
it was more. And then we keep saying that we've had investigations, but you just had audits. You didn't have any investigations.
We've had 5 investigations that have been conducted around this issue that supposedly occurred 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think we're going to conduct any further investigations. If somebody, you know, is bringing litigation on it, I certainly would not want to comment on that tonight. But the audit that was conducted on last year's testing showed that 99.4% of the classrooms, the schools, actually showed no issues at all. And it was even a smaller percentage. That's 0.6%. It was an even smaller percentage than 0.6% that showed any serious questions. And those schools were identified, and I know the chancellor as well as the charters, because some of those were charter schools also. It was charters as well as 1 or 2 DC public schools. They are being dealt with. Certainly the chancellor is dealing with those that are DC public schools. The charters, because they are separate and distinct LEAs, they will be dealt with individually by those LEAs. Yes, Terry.
Thank you, Vincent. First of all, I want to thank you for verbally restoring Coolidge money in the budget start our SIT team this year.
Now remember, we're talking about trying to get the planning started, okay?
Right,
Terry?
just the planning.
I don't want to. I try to be as straight up as I possibly can, so I don't want to misstate anything.
No, that's $3.5 million for the SIT team planning process. So I thank you for verbally restoring that. But what we would like to know is who's our point of contact that we will be working with to make sure that money is actually put back in the budget.
All right, you can work with Brian Hanlon was still in here. Is Brian Hanlon out in the hall talking to? Oh. Brian. I couldn't resist.
Here I am.
Brian, should you be the point on this?
Yes, I have a whole team that will help organize the SIT team. But if you come around or we can meet up, I'll give you my card and we'll make sure that we're in contact. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much, Brian.
All right. We by the way, for those of you who don't know, we created a new agency that now is about what, 18 months old, Brian?
That's correct.
And that's the Department of General Services. We brought all these construction agencies together under one umbrella so that people would know where to go. You know, we had an MPD construction agency and a fire and emergency medical services and a DCPS, and recreation had its own construction agency. So we have let now the agencies be able to run the programs. That's what the people want to do. You know, Jesus Aguirre didn't come here to build recreation centers. He came here to do recreation programs. And so now he's got the chance to do it. No center is ever built without him having, and his staff have input into the program. But the actual work is now being handled by the Department of General Services under the leadership of Brian Hanlon. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Mr. Syndrome. You're going to be succinct, right, Mr. Syndrome?
There was a slight made, Mr. Mayor, about somebody needing energy. Every time I see you look younger and younger. And there is no substitute for experience. That should give me 2 extra minutes.
Nope.
Our firefighters.
Nice try, but no.
Our firefighters, since 2006, haven't gotten a raise across the board, at least. Right? Why are we nickel and diming our most vulnerable with the red top meter? Right? If we got a surplus, that ought not be. PEPCO, which is greedy.
Hold it, Mr. Syndrome. Let's answer that one right now, okay? First of all, that is a negotiating issue with the firefighters. They are in negotiations. They've already had 6 mediation sessions. They're now going to arbitration. Is that right, Chief? So that is a union issue that has to be negotiated. And the surplus would not be an answer to that. The reserves, that is separate money. It is one-time money. You could never fund a raise with surplus or reserve dollars because you can only spend that dollar one time. But once you give somebody a raise, you got to do that year after year after year. So those would have to be different dollars. But we are hopeful of being able to finalize a contract with the firefighters, right, Chief? And Deputy Mayor Kwanda, we're hoping to be able to do that. I hope we can do it soon.
8 years, long time. PEPCO.
Well, I haven't been here 8 years, okay?
PEPCO is greedy. I didn't say needy. Undergrounding on our dime, very expensive, and it's not a panacea. The streetcar folly, it's going to serve only a limited part of the city. God forbid we have a derecho, overhead wiring, right? Underground's going to come down. The fire department has to reroute. The spatial constraints with parking, streetcars, all of that, it needs to go. Trolley folly. There's a better way. Let's enhance our metro, our buses, our train, and take that $400 million plus and put it back where it's needed. Okay?
Okay, I hear you, Mr. Senator. I happen not to agree with you, but at the sacrifice of all these people in this room, I won't engage you in a debate about that one because that would be quite protracted. But thank you for your point. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor. My
How
name
you
is
doing?
good, thank you. My name is Asmata Siu. I'm the director of the African Immigrant and Refugee Foundation. We provide services for African immigrant families and youth. And so my question tonight is whether you intend on giving the Office on African Affairs, which is heavily tied to the community, the ability to offer grant funds to African immigrant serving organizations. I believe it's perhaps the only one that's left among the constituent serving offices in the district.
I don't know that that's a proposal that's on the table. Steve, you could probably address that better than I could.
Well, I don't need the mic to answer, not at this current time.
Okay.
Not at this current time.
You want to talk to her further, though, about it, because I don't think that the Office of Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs has grant-making authority either, does it? It does. Okay, well, why don't you talk to Mr. Glaudet, and he can give you further information on that. Okay, over here. We're over here.
Open this side.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, good afternoon, Mr.
How you
Mayor.
doing, Ms. Hunter?
And everybody, hello, hello.
Ms. Hunter, I haven't seen you since I was on the council.
The last time I was here, I spoke about the real property taxes, that the rise of it helped all of us to be displaced. So I was wondering whether or not you think it would be easier to concentrate on those of the highest pay. Those, I would say maybe you want to hire about 3 superintendents to take care of this top job. In other words, make it real simple. We talk about all these schools. Let's talk about the people who are talking about closing those schools. And that way, it won't be so much confusion. Folks won't be so angry. People won't be, you understand what I'm saying. And also, I find that in the schools, the students do need extra classrooms for them to study in on their own, like social study classrooms. And also more libraries and more books and more health subjects should be taught in the lower grades. When I say health, I mean let the students learn about the body, the parts, the muscles, nerves, veins, all of that. Because all of that will help them to be able to be more sociable, and when they play with one another and talk, they will understand life better.
Let me try to address your the questions best I can. Well, she had a number of questions, and I'm going to try to give my answer broadly. Okay. The thing that I hope we could do, I think to me it makes sense. I think one, we need to do 3 things. We need to make sure that we start recognizing that when our children go to school, it shouldn't be recognized only as at 5 years of age. That children need to be in school, not preschool, in school at a much earlier age. Secondly, I think we need a longer school day. I think our children should be in school routinely until 5 or 6 o'clock. And by the way, I do youth town hall meetings. I've done 17 youth town hall meetings since I became the mayor. And I did them as youth hearings before that. And I had a town hall meeting with a bunch of students, and I asked them the question. And I figured, boy, they're going to run me out of here, right? Well, you know what the answer was? And several students said this. They said, it's not so much that we mind going, school to school 2 or 3 hours longer a day. It's a question of what are you going to do with the 2 or 3 hours? What are you going to provide in those 2 or 3 hours? If we are really interested in it, we wouldn't have a problem being there until 5 or 6 o'clock. So I believe we should have a longer school day, and I also think we should have a longer school year, because America is no longer competitive like we used to be in terms of public education. People think that we are number 1, 2, or 3 in educating kids internationally. We are not. We're not in the top 10 anymore. We're not in the top 20, and we are barely in the top 30. We are number 28 internationally in public education. And ladies and gentlemen, given the amount of money that we spend on public education in this nation, that is a completely unacceptable outcome. And we need to make more demands on our parents and our children in terms of how long these kids go to school and what the quality is. I think, frankly, DCPS is making fantastic progress. Are we there? No, we got a ways to go. But I think they are making fantastic progress. I frankly think having a competitive environment in public education in the city helps everybody get better. I was an athlete. I played a lot of different sports, and some of them I played at a pretty high level. And frankly, if you didn't play anybody, you were never going to be as good as if you played somebody else. Let me put it, when Dunbar played Coolidge, you looked forward to Dunbar and Coolidge playing each other, but if Dunbar only played Dunbar or Coolidge only played Coolidge, you're not going to have the kind of outcomes that you would have, because the competition is what keeps you sharp, you learn from it, and you want to be better because of the opportunities that you have.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we better,
Mr. Mayor,
we'll come back to you afterwards. We got a bunch of people in line, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, sir.
How you doing, Mayor?
How you doing?
Jim Proctor.
How you doing?
The question I have is concerning the assimilation that you were talking about with disability kids. We had several members of the Alumni Association were inquiring about the conversations around Sharp at 13th Street and Mamie D. Lee being moved over to River Terrace, or those conversations about that. And the assimilation of those students in the Roosevelt and the Petworth area helps them more so than the isolation they think they're going to get if you take them all the way over to River Terrace. I want to know, is that a done deal, or will there be maybe a revamping of Sharp because they can hold 400 students there?
No, it's pretty much of a done deal. I don't think they're going to be isolated. First of all, I live in that area of the city, so I don't feel isolated. And frankly, if you ask me the question, having spent a lot of my time in the field of disabilities, we are doing this because it will be a modernized, upgraded building. Sharp is not in good shape. Mamie D. Lee was never a good place, in my opinion. It was a school that was built, I don't know, 35 or 40 years ago, and the design of it really is like some of these open space schools that we have in the city. There's classrooms in there, but never was really effectively designed. You ever seen the pool in Mamie D. Lee? Yeah, well, it's really not what I would consider to be acceptable for a school. But I really want to move towards all of these young people being integrated into inclusive environments in our regular schools. Children of high school age being able to go to Dunbar or Coolidge or Cardozo or, all these other schools. So River Terrace hopefully is a stopping point, for young people who then would be able to go to their neighborhood schools. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at, and that is have young people be educated close to, where they live. That would be my goal ultimately also. But I don't think River Terrace is going to be isolated, because kids go to Sharp from all over the city. Kids go to Mamie D. Lee from all over the city. So for some people, River Terrace is probably going to be closer to where they live. For some children, it's going to be further away from where they live because they are bused from all over the city to those two places. What is important to me is that these children, these young people, are prepared to be able to go into life after that, rather than just go into another program as adults. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to be able to start bringing our kids back to public education, because so many of them have come back after being in non-public tuition placements and still had to go to another program at the expense, the emotional expense of their family, and at the financial expense of the city. Faith?
Thank you, Mayor Gray. I'd like to congratulate you again for your interest in infant and toddler care, which is, I think, very, very important. Research shows it, and the more we can do there, I think we'll be serving our people better and also saving money as well. I have a couple of other concerns related to education. As we know, we've shut down 23 schools a couple of years ago. We're about to shut down 15 more, 13, I guess, this coming year and 2 later. I would like to ask you to consider to think about selecting some of those schools, and instead of closing them down, use the excess space for wraparound services, and particularly in those communities that are struggling with low income and high unemployment and that sort of thing. Rather than taking away services, which I think often the citizens of the low-income areas consider a school, and I certainly do too. Add services so that, in fact, it will help empower them to get back on their feet and help themselves and help the city too. I have a radical other suggestion just to throw out there for consideration. It's so radical that it has been tried and is going forward with one charter school seed, and that's a residential program. I would like to suggest that within the DCPS school system, we consider, in fact, residential program schools, 5 days a week at school and 2 days a week home. To, indeed, as my teacher, public school teacher daughter says, to limit the variables that you have to consider in teaching children, particularly those who are struggling with various challenges at home and in the neighborhoods, to, in fact, help them more and help themselves, their families, and the city.
All right, thank you. And we have a couple of people from DCPS, and I would ask you all to convey that information to the chancellor. I know that's something, I know the residential component is something that she's considered. We've had discussions about it, but it also is a budgetary issue that has to be dealt with as well. The infant and toddler programs, you know where I am on that. And there's a charter school now that has made the commitment, for those who might be interested, that if a parent wants to enroll their child right after birth, that's Eagle Academy. They will serve the child at that age, which means we're talking about a child who may be only weeks or months old. That will be an interesting thing to follow. It'll be more of a developmental program rather than an educational program at that stage, but still it is stimulation of our kids at a very early point rather than wait till they're 5. You know, I was at I won't go on with this, but I was at a lecture, a seminar a few weeks ago in which there were 2 University of Washington researchers, and they corroborated something that some of us have felt for a very long time. They're neurophysiologists, and the research they had done indicated that 92% of brain development has occurred by the time a child is 5 years of age. Now, why would we wait until a child is 5 to go to school? The opportunity has been tremendously lost by that time. We ought to involve these kids as early as we possibly can. You know, I've said to people, and people laugh when I say it, and that is, if I could get a fetus into a program, I would do it, because I don't think that's too early to actually get a child engaged. And I guess we do. When we have prenatal care, that is like getting a fetus into a program. You are going to have the last word.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and everyone here. My question relates to the Summer Jobs for Youth program.
Yes.
My son, he's 28 now, but he was able to participate in that during the time he was attending Roosevelt High School. He worked a couple of summers for Metro, and he would work on the computers, and he learned a lot about computers because of that. My question basically is, what is the DC government doing to partner with businesses in the city, and what is the DC government doing independently to try to employ some of our youth or more of them during the summer and even afterwards, because it's so important that they learn responsibility, they develop character, they understand what the real world is like. And so I wonder, what proposals do you have regarding that?
Well, it's not so much of a proposal as it is actuality. We will have this summer, and Lisa Mallory is here, I'll let her speak to it further, but we have 14,900 youth who will be employed in the summer youth employment program. Are you still with us? Okay. 14,900 youth who will be employed in the summer youth employment program. And a lot of them will be employed in technology jobs. By the way, it's not just 14,900. It's every young person who signed up for the program and was certified. There is no young person who wanted a summer job who will not be served in the District of Columbia this summer. Every young person who is certified to be able to work will be. And Lisa, you want to talk about the year-round program?
Well, absolutely. We have a lot of partnerships in place with employers so that not just are the individuals that are participating in the Summer Youth Program for 6 weeks working with us and getting job ready, because this is actually a workforce development program. Over the past 2 years, we have stressed that this be a real work experience as opposed to just sort of a summer camp or some other experience that's not significant, since DOES is actually championing the Summer Youth Employment Program. So in addition to that, we also have year-round programming. So whether it's in school or out of school, we have programming for the youth to provide opportunities for workforce development. All of the youth, the 14,971 that the mayor mentioned, we had some of the youth are actually between the ages of 18 and 21, and we try to get them into the pipeline to get real jobs from the beginning. So they're not just looking for a 6-week stipend, they actually get a real job. So we have over 800 employers that are partnering with us, and we are ready to go. The youth are right now doing their mandatory orientations, and they will thereafter be interviewed by employers. They have to have a resume, and they will be interviewed by employers because it mirrors the real work experience. So that is what we're doing. We have about 1,733 youth in Ward 4 that are participating. I'm a Ward 4 resident, and so we are pretty happy with the progress that we've made so far.
Thank you very much, Lisa. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. There are numerous other hearings to be conducted on the budget. We hope you will come down and involve yourself in the process. And we hope that you will come down and support the budget that we're trying to promote on behalf of the people of the District of Columbia. Thank you all very much, and good night.